When you said idiopathic, I'm like, oh, what is idiopathic psychology? I'm like, does it have to do with idiots?
It can.
Welcome to the show, everyone. We just gave you a little behind the scenes peek at how Dana and I started that episode.
Are we taping already? Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh,
The audience wants these backdoor, behind the Wizard of Oz curtain.
Yes, that's
conversations.
Right.
And this is how we start.
I
hit the record button. Dana didn't even know. I didn't even get Dana's consent on hitting the record button on idiot psychology.
Oh my God, too funny. I love it.
Wow. Well, on that note,
yeah.
Dana and I keep talking about, there's no panacea for, in other words, there's no one size fits all, cure all, quickly done. You do the one thing, life is good.
It would be great because we could, if we had that, we could just do that to our clients, charge them $10,000.
Boom.
We'd be rich. They'd be happy. It'd be great.
Done. It'd be so, it'd be done. I wonder what the CPT code reimbursement super bill code would be for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also thinking that you and I have talked a lot, and just before we logged on, about helping your poor puppy dog with the separation anxiety. You have had to work so hard to find just the right, and I'm going to knock on wood, combo of things. And as we're training our puppy, just the right, and I feel bad because I know some of these things that I can do. And I'm like, oh, duh, I should have been doing that. But I'm not perfect, and you're going to figure it out as you go. And I'm so sleep deprived, I'm pretty sure I'm dead right now, and this isn't actually happening. But yeah, so.
I'm in your dreams, Dana.
Yeah, idiopathic really means unique to that person. Or like in the medical model, we don't know what causes this. You can sometimes see idiopathic used, we have no idea what's going on here, which really is another word for multifaceted, unique to that person, and we don't really know how to manage it, right? So therapy is a lot like that. When people say, well, don't you have a problem someone comes in with, and then you fix that problem? And I'm like, well, if that's all that person has. And I always use the example like smoking cessation, right?
Yeah.
Very specific things that you do. Or, the addictions model is very much about learning to cope with that thing you're addicted to, not in your life. And there's a very prescribed, 12 steps. But for things like that we're talking about, it's as unique as each individual person is. What works for me wouldn't work for you. We have to be like these archaeological explorers when we get new clients to try to find out what's going on with them. How do we address it? As you get to know people, more stuff comes up, and it's unique to that person. So it really is kind of like an outfielder in baseball. You can, a really seasoned outfielder will tell you things like, if I know what the pitch is going to be, and I know this batter, I can sort of make some guessing odds of where the ball might go. And so they'll try to get a jump on it. You'll hear them say and those kinds of things. But for the average person, you and I, if we don't know anything about that, we just wait till the ball gets hit, and then we try to run and hope we can catch wherever it goes. And you never know where it's going to go, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're an infielder, now you've got this. I was always terrible as an infielder because I was so afraid that I was going to get hit in the face, right? The ball is going to come to me and get hit in the face. So then you can have that added layer of, oh my God, I don't know if it's going to come to me. I don't know if it's going to hurt me. And I don't know if I have the skills to field it, right? And so that's a lot of what therapists are doing. We're like, we're waiting for you to move, and we're trying to, right? Ooh, are they going to throw it? Getting to know that person's language. We talk some of it about building rapport, but depending on what we're working on, maybe longer term, we have to kind of learn the isms is a word a colleague of mine uses of that person. The idiopathy of that person. You and I could be exposed to the same antecedent event, and we would have different responses to it because we're different
Mm-hmm.
people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also what I mean by idiopathic too. And it can make it really frustrating for the individual going through therapy because it feels like the therapist doesn't know what they're doing. No, they're trying to figure you out, or you're trying to figure out for yourself what works in X, Y, and Z scenario, right? So you're learning your own idiopathy, if you will, right?
You know, I think that a sign of a good therapist or an excellent, great, exceptional therapist is one that reflects back to you something that resonates, but you kind of know.
Yeah.
And that's a therapist or a psychologist who's really, really paying attention to really understand your kind of, in my practice, we use the words archaeological dig. I'll say sleuthing. I've got this,
there you go.
Oh, excuse me, Stanley. I've got this, magnifying glass.
Oh, yeah.
My godfather made this magnifying glass because he does like really high-end woodworking with small wood, and he made this. It's so gorgeous.
Wow.
For those of you, it's this most beautiful magnifying glass. And I'll take this out so that, and it's just like sometimes it's a visual for my client that we're sleuthing.
Oh, yeah.
This is safe. This isn't, we're doing something, or I'll just say like, what's your Rosetta Stone? Like what exactly is, how do we translate this or interpret this? I do feel like good therapists pay attention to these things and reflect it back to you. And then over time you develop a profile or an understanding of yourself. Hey, Dana, I was looking up idiopathic.
Yeah.
And interestingly, this article comes up and it's nomothetic versus idiographic approaches.
Oh, yeah.
So nomothetic, meaning that the psychologist is focusing on more general principles that apply to a lot of people. Okay. I think in many ways, that's like your general practitioner who's like, let's talk about anxiety and depression in life. Okay. Yep. And so they are mainly concerned with studying what we share with others, similarities between people. Okay.
Right.
So it's establishing laws or generalizations that apply to everyone. Obviously, Dana and I are not nomothetically oriented.
Right.
Okay.
Do you think? Yeah.
Then there's the idiographic approach.
Yeah.
Focuses on understanding individuals in their unique contexts.
Yes.
It aims to uncover specific, individualized factors and experiences that contribute to a person's behavior and psychological functioning, using qualitative methods and in-depth analysis to gain rich insights into individual lives.
Yep.
So, no general laws are possible because of chance, free will, and the uniqueness of individuals. So we've got these kind of approaches, and this is triggering some repressed memories from grad school. As
I was just going to say, I'm having this like flashback to studying for our EPPP for our license.
For EPPP, for our board for our boards.
Right.
I'm sure we got into nomothetic and idiographic approaches.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we had to have. Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So this is something that I think for, Dana and I are obviously more, idiographically oriented because of the people that we support. We can't use generalized ideas of personality and psychology. That just does not apply. That would be not applicable to our lovely population and community that we support.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's I think internalizing that too as a client is really helpful. And as a neurodivergent person, I mean, this is the adage of that if you've met one autistic, you've met one autistic.
You met one.
Right. And then we've talked about adding to that layer on any given day if the stress bucket's full or whatever. But yeah, there are some predictable sorts of things, and then there are things that aren't predictable. So I can work with somebody who had a particular background, and then I have a client that I've seen for quite a while, a particular background, and then was sort of obsessively watching documentaries on cults. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And it ended up being this really central way she was working through an issue that she had from her past. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Would I ever like prescribe, watch a bunch of documentaries on cults? Of course not, right? But so it's also like as a therapist, as a client, figuring out, you may be trying to work something through. That would be a very idiopathic thing. It had to do with their history, had nothing to do with my history, but has been super helpful. And then we're talking about all these layers of things that they've noticed from watching those things, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good example of that, unique to that person, versus me saying, oh, I think you came from this one background and I'm going to put my lens on you, which is more of like that nomothetic idea, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely not the way. I mean, the only time I might touch a nomothetic kind of thing would be normalization. It's normal for people, for humans to experience X.
Yeah.
It gets amplified because of your A, B, C, D, X,
right,
profile.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm only working idiopathically or idiographically, actually, between, I'm going to get into stunt. Like, I need to learn about stunts. I've got a client who's really into stunting, and I don't understand that world at all. And so, but being able to go there, or an anime or Harry Potter or Star Wars, I mean, oftentimes we use that content as a connecting point to explore something a little bit deeper, which selfishly I thoroughly enjoy, because I thoroughly enjoy those topics and that content. In the end, how many of our clients have said to us, Dana, I've seen X number of therapists and it's not worked.
Yeah.
It's actually sometimes gotten worse, or I've gotten dumped by multiple ones. And so all I can be left with is thinking, it's me.
Yeah. And that's when I tell people the national average is 3 to 5 therapists before you find a good
Is it? Dana, I didn't know that stat.
Yeah. Which I always think is sort of sad that it's that many.
Jeez, are you serious?
Yeah, used to be higher. I think that people are getting better at it, and people are getting better. I think there's more access to being able to research someone online, ask questions online, make sure you have a better fit versus, oh, I got your name from a friend who likes you, and then you go and it doesn't work at all, right? Like Psychology Today has a therapist finding tool where you put in things you're looking for, and then they try to match you as well as they can. So I think the average has gone down. That also, like, it may be that you and I are different people, that we might use very similar techniques, but it comes, the lived experience of us using those is different because they come through our own personality. And not everybody likes everybody's personality. I'll tell people that too.
Yeah.
I may not be a good fit for you because of how I do myself in the X, Y, and Z. And that's okay. A good therapist will also say, let's spend some time together and then we'll check in, and how is this going for you? And am I meeting your needs? And, what else might you need? People are terrified to start therapy and then leave.
Yep.
For God's sake, I've had a hard time leaving people who have cut my hair. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to go back. Am I going to, I'm going to get in trouble because I'm not going back. Someone cutting my hair. Talk about people pleasing from our last episode, right? So like this ghosting thing, that's a term too, right? But it's so hard because there's so many variables at play, and that idiopathy, again, back to that topic, really has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
We do need to accept and lean into our differences.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, depending on where you are in the world, this is also could be culturally challenging.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
Right. I think about how I grew up, and even just some of my cultural influences. And it's a very collectivistic community versus individual, right? I think we're able to do that more. Most of our listeners are here in the United States. And so we're able to do that more here, even though it's challenging in its own right for lots of other reasons.
But even here, if I'm seeing a client who comes from a collectivist background, I, as a therapist, need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
I have a client who is Muslim from a Muslim country, and we process the real oppression out there in a very different way than I would work with rejection in a person that has all the variables of privilege, straight white man. I mean, there has to be that contextual piece as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
My a good friend, colleague of mine studies 3E. So we all know 2E, right? The idea of being gifted with a learning disability, so twice exceptional.
Okay.
That 3E piece, adding a piece, a different marginalization factor could be ethnic, cultural, society, SES, et cetera. And what happens in that intersection.
Yeah.
This is all interesting. And so this is also why it's difficult to just do what other people are doing. I think that can also be a trap from the internet as well. Yeah. Well, so-and-so did this, or so-and-so did that, or they took this supplement, or they did this, and it doesn't work for you. And it doesn't work for you because it's not right for you. And to be able to understand those things. And it is trial and error. Sometimes it's a trial and error. I mean, you don't know if you're going to get along with a therapist. I'm not, I don't get along with everybody. I'm not good for everybody, and not everyone's good for me in work. I'm really clear about who I'm good for. And if we're not good for each other, it's like, just don't even go there. Don't waste the time. And that's not a slam on anyone. That's just goodness of fit. Kind of going back to Prof and Brenner,
and we're part of what we need to do, and we have to. It's really hard to instill in our students as we're teaching them is, you're going to hit a brick wall with somebody.
Yeah,
you're human. There's going to be someone that, and I'll ask, like, what would be someone you could work with, and students will say something like, I don't think I could work with a sex offender. I don't think I could work with a child rapist. Yeah, whereas other people can, because they're coming from a different place. Everybody has their own limits and what they can do, and that's not going to be a good understanding. I'll use the word loving in air quotes, more like I have positive regard for you, to use a Rogerian idea. If therapists can't hold that, that's not fair to you either, right? No. So there is that, the interplay between the two of you as well. Yeah.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah. And I always say
that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. If I had $1 for every time I say it depends, I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you. I'd be living in a yacht somewhere in the south of France, But it's not a cop out on our part.
Are you insinuating that we get paid for our podcast? Because we don't.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Or I'd be doing it from my yacht in France. I would still want to do it because it's so fun. But yeah, it isn't a cop out in that regard. And I as we're talking, and there's this layer of it that I hadn't really thought about before. And that is that internalization of knowing you're idiopathic, because then you can be a little bit more kind to yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can understand if you're having a reaction to something, it's okay. It doesn't mean you're wrong. Even if all of this out here is saying you're wrong, you can give yourself some love and say, I don't think maybe I don't fit out there. Maybe I'm a neurodivergent and a neurotypical world, so I'm not going to add on top of the heap and hate myself too, right? To be able to be kind to yourself as well. Yeah.
And maybe I don't need to fit there.
Yeah. Or, I really would like to, but I know realistically I've tried and I'm just hurting myself more. And so I'm going to let it go. Yeah. There may be a part of it that I always am like, it would have been nice, but I'm going to let it go. Those are real things that we deal with in therapy too. Sort of, what are the real limits of life, right?
Yep.
Those happen. Yep.
Yeah. And that, we've been referring to DBT. Actually, we referred to DBT in our last episode, which is dialectical behavioral therapy for those of you that, and DBT was really created and formed by Marsha Linehan, who created the framework to support borderlines and narcissists. Yeah. And in our field, those are seen, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying they're seen as the most emotionally dysregulated folk. Yeah. And so DBT, because of that, is an extremely comprehensive model that focuses on two arms, right? Emotional regulation and distress tolerance. And but there are so many beautiful skills. But something that DBT does talk about, though, is they call it radical acceptance.
Yeah.
And there's this ability to just say, I fully accept this about myself or about someone else. And that really helps, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. Like if you're a victim of a narcissist, being able to radically accept that that person's a narcissist is really helpful, because you kind of stop trying in certain ways, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother episode.
Or to have that radical acceptance for yourself too. We were joking about your when I totally relate to the fingernails being too long.
Oh yeah.
This is a benign example, but I think it really drives home this message in a deep way. There would have been a time in my life where I would have just gone and said, geez, Dana, what the hell's your problem? Just deal with it. It's just your nails. What's wrong with you that you have to have them trimmed?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, we could be in the middle of a movie and I'll say, can you pause it? And I'll run upstairs to trim my nails.
Yep. Gotta handle this.
Yeah. So there really is that kind of, that's what we were meaning by like radical internal accepting. And when I first would do that, maybe the first time I did it, told my wife that and thought she was looking at me like I was crazy. And I came back down. She's like, I'm like, weird, huh? She's like, I do that too. So you might be surprised, right? By the other person might be okay with it. So it's okay to say, I need to do this. I've talked on the show about, my one last stim, I will never stop picking my thumb, just my thumb cuticles. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's not harming you, Dana, in any way, or harming anyone else. Well, I'll say this is how comfortable I am with Dana. My fingernails got to, 1.3 millimeters longer than I like.
Yeah.
And I said to Dana, I was like, Dana, I was like, Dana, I got to handle this. And I literally didn't even wait for her to respond. I just handled it. And while we were talking, I just like, and then, a lot of people would be like, that is disgusting.
No.
I just knew like I could do that with Dana. I probably wouldn't do that with every single person in my life.
I have muted my sound in meetings and twice, I think, with the client now. And just sort of secretly, because I couldn't stand it.
Me too. It's like, it's really to allow myself to be in the here and now. If I can't be in the here and now if my brain is really stuck on the fact that I can feel my in my self-test of how long my nails are, right? Because we do these types of things. It's just my quirk. And I've had to do the same
know yourself, right? And that acceptance. When you and I were talking at the break about some stuff you've been doing with your dog about these raw bones.
Yeah.
I just needed to Google it, and I have a tab open still there.
Yep.
And then I could let it go, because before I was like, I want to get these. I don't want to forget. I wasn't going to be able to focus, right? So you learn your things that you need. And when you're first trying to implement them, you might feel a little apologetic for it, but God, it's so liberating and wonderful when you're like, I just need to do this. And then the people around you are like, it's not hurting anybody. Sounds good. Do it. And then we can move on. It's really, really, so that's that idiopathy too, that it could be really exciting for people to play with and learn about themselves.
Yeah. And to this point, where this gets hung up, I think, is in social appropriateness, quote, I'm doing air quotes as well. Yeah. And so sometimes when I'm meeting with a teenager and their parent, let's say in a session, and the teenager, would rather be off camera or doesn't really want to look at the camera or is fiddling around with something, and their parent is like, look at her, like be in them. And I always say, no, just come as you are.
Yep.
We need to be in a space where we can talk about what we want to talk about. I don't care that they're in screen. I don't care they're half off screen. I don't care that they have a hoodie up. I don't care. I don't care about those things. And so sometimes if I've got a client that's like itchy, they're like itching, and I'll just stop. I'll be like, do you need to take care of it? Like, go take care of it. They're like, I don't know how to take care of it. It's like, like lotion or something. Like, lotion. Go take care of it. I will wait right here. And then you come back, and then we'll be able to check in. And that in and of itself is therapeutic. It's
huge for neurodivergence, I think, because you learn to take care of yourself, and
got to take care of yourself.
They're having be like, I get it. It's okay. We'll pick up when you get your cream. Yeah, that's awesome.
We're not getting anything done.
Yeah.
Like if we just kind of step back and think about what the session's for, you know, to mask it and to pretend it's not happening. It is the opposite of therapy.
I had a client yesterday who her mic kept muting. We're like, that's weird. Then she realized it was because her son's school was calling. And then you could see this panic on her face.
Oh.
And she said, I'm really sorry. I said, you know what? Just go answer it. Because I have to log off of Zoom. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and wait, log back on. And she came back and she kept saying, I'm sorry. I'm like, we're so like, oh my God, I'm sorry. It's like, it's okay. And it makes me realize how much grace out in the world people don't get.
Yeah.
And how amazing it is when you can give it to somebody else. I'm going to get choked up. Yeah. Give it to somebody else and give it to yourself, right?
Yeah.
I've seen, we were talking about the fingernail thing. I've seen videos and memes where people are like on an airplane and someone's cutting their toenails. And you're like, so at what point do you mask? But then I thought, how would you deal with that? Put the clippers in your pocket and go use them in the bathroom. No one's going to know.
Yes.
Right? So there's always a way that you could sort of structure and do those layers out to take care of yourself. There's always a way to do that.
There's always a way. And I'm going to tell you that if I was sitting next to the person that was cutting their toenails, I might have a thought about it. Yeah. And I do believe for me and my comfort level that you cutting your nails in the bathroom is a better choice.
Yeah. And isn't it funny? Nails?
Your toenails.
I mean, they're nails. People have get wiggies from someone cutting their nails, but we're fine with baseball players spitting constantly. Why is that socially acceptable? And cutting your nails isn't. That's way grosser. See, so these are sort of these arbitrary things that become idiopathic brick walls for folks. God, who knew we were going to go to this?
Who knew we were? I mean, there's just so many idiopathic things. I mean, the other thing I think about, Dana, is time.
Yeah.
There's a cultural thing of time. My godfather's saying is, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're fired. Is his philosophy on time. Yeah. And I think about that quite a bit because when I'm meeting my godparents for lunch or dinner or something, I am early. And it makes me anxious. Like when my family is like, oh, like you guys got to hurry on your up because I will not be late to this. I will not, we need to be early or else. I don't necessarily feel that way about everything. I like to be on time for things, but I think about there's cultural things to time, like Filipinos, and I'm married to one, and I'm sorry if you're Filipino and this is an overgeneralization, but they tend to run late. Yeah. And it's culturally appropriate for them to run late.
And Hispanic as well, I think it's a cultural variable to not be obsessive about time.
It's just like those things, like that's another kind of idiopathic, and you could be my husband's family who they're Filipino. We're always on time. And I felt like they were weird. They were always weird because they were always on time and no one would be at the party.
Yeah.
We'd be the first ones at a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Our historical background is like German, Austrian, Norwegian.
The clockmakers.
Be on time.
Basically the clockmakers.
Precision clockmakers. Yeah. So it's like, you're not. Yeah. So, and you may not even be aware. We didn't talk about that growing up, but it was like, you do those. Yeah.
You knew
all
it.
Those things have effects. Yeah.
These are all the variables that come
moving to
into
the
play.
West Coast. I have had to let that go because it's just not, it's not the norm here. And then where I teach at Antioch, we have a saying at Antioch, being on Antioch time.
Oh,
people.
What is Antioch time? Late?
You may have an hour-long meeting. Some people are on time. Someone else might repeatedly every week come 15 minutes late. And it's okay. I know. I'm like, I don't understand. Oh, it's just an Antioch thing. And I'm like, did the universe give me this? So I have to now finally get used to it. And I have now. I'm just like, well, they're 15 minutes late. Too bad for them. They're going to miss out. But yeah,
Right.
all those things, all
All
those
the
variables that
things.
can interplay. Yeah.
So
It really is like
life
a
is not.
multiverse, isn't it?
It is a multiverse, yes. And it, and so for those of you that get frustrated with like, it worked for this person, it's not
Mhm.
working for me.
Mhm.
You are your own, you got to figure out your own
Yep.
dynamics, your own
Yep.
combination of buttons
Yep.
to push in
Yep.
order to find your,
Yep. I feel like
whatever
we need to
your X
name
is.
this episode, by the way,
Yeah.
Spit and Fingernails.
Let's do it.
Oh God! So
Let's do it.
you've gotten to the portion of this episode where now you know why we've named it Spit and Fingernails. Yeah. Oh God, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
And if you have gotten to this place in the episode for Spit and Fingernails, in the comments, just put a thumbs up emoji or something.
Yeah, or let us know what your spit or fingernail thing is. I would love to know what other
Blech.
people's are, so I can know if I do those too. I get so angry too. I'm like, they don't spit in basketball.
No.
Why do baseball players get to spit all the time?
Sometimes they do in hockey. I see them spit a little bit in hockey.
In hockey, okay.
I see that. Do you know what I thought you were going to say about baseball players?
Yeah. Crotch
Male
grabbing.
ones?
Yeah.
Crotch grabbing.
Yeah. I've heard though that I have learned that if they're wearing an athletic supporter, but also as they move around, their parts are different than ours and they need adjusting. So I'm like, I totally get it. I always love, my ex-husband used to tell me this. He thought one of the funniest things on the Seinfeld show, where they were talking about something called shrinkage, where when men go in cold water, what happens?
Yeah.
That was a funny episode to begin with, right? But they ask Elaine, George is panicking, and Jerry says, all men know about shrinkage. And she says, but I don't think women do. So Elaine comes in and they say, do you know what shrinkage is? She's like, do you mean like a sweater? And they tell her what it is. And she just gets this look on her face. She's like, I don't know how you guys walk around with those things. That's the line. But for me, that line was like, that must really be hard. And then I totally don't judge guys adjusting anymore because I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. So let us know any of your
But does it bother you if they put their hand inside their pants and adjust and bring them out and not wash them? And then go on and touch other things, like touch doorknobs and touch these things that I then have to touch.
Yeah. Same way than if we put our hand down there and did whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of times you just kind of wiggling and, adjusting. Yeah. Like I adjust my bra sometimes, gotta get the straps right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has devolved quickly. This is our shared idiopathy, is crazy, weird, neurodivergent humor.
Well, Dana and I can follow the tiniest thread, and it's really interesting to us. Anyway, all right, everyone, on that note, be good to you, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.